The topic for today is the engine management system. But before going onto the engine management system, in this webinar we'll be discussing in brief about the engine management system, because it's not possible to discuss whole of the engine management system in the 1 hour lecture. Okay, here we'll be discussing the overview of the engine management system, that why do we require that. Okay, see, this engine management system, it is present in both the vehicles. It is present in the diesel engine also. It is present in the petrol engine also. And today, the biofuel vehicles are very common. Biofuel vehicle means that the vehicles which operates on two fuels. That is, in the petrols, what we do is we actually fit the CNG kits and all. Okay, so the vehicle is operating on petrol also. It is operating on gas also. And right now, the CNG kits which are coming, they also have got their management system in place. Okay, so the usage of engine management system is very high in today's generation of vehicle. If we go on to the history part also, this engine management system is not a new thing. Okay, we have started using engine management system in the four-wheelers from 1997 onwards. See, before 1997, there were, if I talk about India, then in India, no rules were there regarding the environmental pollution, which is coming from the vehicles. But in 1997, the committee was drafted and they observed that the vehicles are causing lots of pollution. Okay, and the reason behind that is we were not giving the adequate amount of fuel supply or the correct amount of fuel supply to the engine. That is why what was happening, the vehicle was delivering more amount of pollution. So keeping this in mind, in 1997 in India, the committee has decided to launch the Bharat Stage norms, which are also known as the pollution norms. Okay, so the Bharat Stage norms, they're nearly similar to that of the European norms, which we call it as Euro norms. Okay, so when these BS norms were launched in India, India is a big country, and in that case, it was not possible to launch the BS norms all over India in one go. So what the this committee people have done, they have launched these BS norms first in the metro cities. So from 1997 to 2000, this pollution norms were launched in 13 metro cities of India. Okay, and in 2000 it was made common for rest part of the country, and the people have started planning for BS2 norms. Okay, so when these BS norms were launched, accordingly, what was happening? The vehicles which we were having before 1997, those vehicles were not getting fit to run on the roads. Why? Because they were delivering more amount of pollution. Okay, because of which they were not complying the BS norms. Okay, so if I talk about the petrol engines, or if I talk about the small diesel engines, when this BS norms were first launched, they were launched for the four-wheeler application itself. They were not launched for the two-wheeler application, and they were not launched for the big commercial vehicles also at that time. So they were common only for the small passenger cars which we see on the road. Okay, so what was being observed by the OEMs is that according to the norms, if they have to make a vehicle which comply to the norms of the Bharat stage, then in that case, what they have to do is they have to change the entire technology of the vehicle. Moreover, if we talk about the refinery side, so the refinery has to produce more filtered amount of fuel so that the vehicle can cause less pollution. So if I talk about the vehicular pollution, then two parameters are important. The first parameter is that how we are supplying the fuel into the vehicle. The second is the fuel coming from the oil refineries. Okay, so to reduce the pollution from the environment, we have to produce more filtered amount of fuel which contains less amount of sulfur into it. Okay, so that is why the challenge was there with the refineries also at that time, that how they will produce this BS1 compliant fuel. Okay, so that is why this BS1 was launched in the phased manner. Now coming to the engine management system, so this is the overview that why do we require a different type of fuel delivery technology into the vehicle. Okay, so in this webinar we'll be discussing about the EMS system, that is the engine management system used in the petrol engines. Okay, though the basic architecture will be same for both petrol and the diesel engines, the overview which we'll be seeing in the upcoming slide, the overview will be same for both. It will be same for petrol engine also. It will be same for diesel engine also. Okay, but what can happen? Certain components can change. Okay, so in this webinar, we'll be sticking only towards the petrol engine. Okay, now so if you further look into this, into the engine management system, as the name suggests, engine management. So in this system, what we have actually done is we have optimized the performance of the engine. Okay, see, going, just see from 1997 to 2021, what we have observed is that the fuel prices have gone very high. Okay, and the government nowadays is more concerned regarding the environmental pollution. They want to decrease the environmental pollution because we have signed the Paris Convention. According to that, till 2030 we have to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions by half. Okay, so the challenge is there within the OEMs also. Okay, because what the consumers now want is, consumer wants the vehicles which can be able to deliver more amount of power. That is the primary requirement. Okay, the power should be more, but the fuel consumption should be less. Okay, but if we talk about the about the concepts which we have studied, that if I will supply more amount of fuel into the vehicle, then what will happen? The engine will develop more amount of power, but supplying more fuel means more fuel consumption. That is, the vehicle will not be fuel economic. Okay, so the challenge is that we have to produce the vehicles which must deliver high amount of power, and second, at a very low fuel consumption. Okay, so for this, what we have to do is we have to change the entire fuel delivery technology. Okay, we have to make the combustion more efficient. So when the combustion will be more efficient, then for the less amount of fuel also, I will be getting more amount of power coming from the vehicle. And when I'm supplying less amount of fuel, then obviously what I'll get less pollution coming from the tailpipe. So this was the idea behind the engine management system. Before we go on to the engine management system, I just want to give you a brief that how this fuel delivery technology has been changed. So this is the types of fuel intake system which we have incorporated in the petrol engines. Okay, so before 1997 in the passenger cars, the fuel delivery technology which we were using, that was carburetor based. It means that we have got the mechanical device, and that mechanical device is used to prepare the air fuel ratio. So somewhere in the intake manifold, what we have done is we have installed this carburetor. Okay, so when we are giving the throttle, so as a result, this butterfly valve opens and the air enters the carburetor body. In the carburetor, we were having the float. So from the float chamber, the fuel rises because of the capillary action. In the venturi, what will happen? In the venturi, the air and fuel mixture will it will take place, and then from the nozzle it was being delivered to the various cylinders of an engine. But the problem here was that the carburetor was it was not fitting well according to the BS1 norms. Why? Because it was not able to meter the quantity of fuel. Okay, metering means that how much amount of fuel is required in that particular cycle. As this carburetor was the mechanical component which was only designed to make the air and fuel mixture and to deliver the fuel under certain higher pressures to the combustion chamber. That was the only thing why we have designed the carburetor. And this pressure which we have used for this carburetor was 20 kilopascal. That is the fuel which was being delivered into the combustion chamber, that was having the pressure of 20 kilopascals. Okay, but the pressure is very less. See, just remember one thing, that when we want efficient combustion, when I'm talking about the efficient combustion, and that two parameters are very important. Okay, though we change the whole combustion chamber design only for these two parameters. The first parameter is the proper atomization of fuel. Okay, atomization means converting the big droplets of fuel into fine droplets. Okay, so that the air and fuel can properly mix with each other, which can result in efficient combustion in the combustion chamber. And second one is the vaporization, that because of the compression ratio, the vaporization should be in such a fashion that whole amount of air particles which we have supplied must be properly mixed with the fuel particles. Then only what will happen? Then only the efficient combustion inside the combustion chamber will take place. Okay, as in the carburetor, this pressure was very less. The injection pressure was very less. It was only 20 kilopascal. So because of this less pressure, the carburetor was supplying the big droplets of fuel. That is why because of this reason only, the combustion was not proper. And when the combustion will not be proper, then obviously the unburnt hydrocarbon emissions from the vehicle will be very high. Okay, so this was the primary reason that why we have obsolete the carburetor in your BS1 norms. So when these BS1 norms were launched, the carburetor-based vehicles were made obsolete, and the technology which has came, that was the FI technology. Now FI stands for fuel injection. Now instead of carburetor, what we were having now, we were having the fuel injection technology. That is, in this case, what we will be doing, we'll be injecting the fuel. Okay, but if I'm talking only about the petrol engine right now. So in the case of petrol engines, we are injecting the fuel behind the intake valve. That is, we are not injecting the fuel directly into the combustion chamber. We are injecting the fuel behind the intake valve, that is in the port. So this fuel injection system was known as port fuel injection system. Okay, so when this technology was launched in 1997, this was the newer technology. So at that time, we were having SPFI, that is single point fuel injection system, in which one injector was present, and that one injector was responsible for delivering the fuel in all these cylinders present in an engine. Okay, but because of only one injector, the several problems starts to come. Okay, the problems were that because of this one injector only, the amount of fuel delivered to all the, though we are using the fuel injection technology, but still because of only single unit injector present into the engine, that is why that injector was not delivering the metered quantity or the equal quantity of fuel in all the cylinders present. So in a very short duration of time, that is in 2 or 3 years maximum, this SPFI was made obsolete, and in the port fuel injection system, the another modification has taken place, and that modification was MPFI system. MPFI, which we use in current generation of vehicles also. So MPFI stands for multi-point fuel injection system. That is, the number of injectors will be equal to the number of cylinders present in an engine. So suppose the engine is having 4 cylinders. So for injecting the fuel in all these 4 cylinders, you'll be having the 4 injectors also. So when one injector is responsible for delivering the fuel in that particular cylinder only, so what will happen? The equal quantity of fuel will be delivered in all the cylinders present. Okay, and that was our major aim. But this seems to be very easy, that you have to inject the fuel, equal quantity of fuel in all the cylinders. Now, before injecting the fuel, what we have to do? We have to make the calculation also, that how much quantity of fuel is required. Okay, what should be the ignition time? If I'm injecting right quantity of fuel into the combustion chamber, it doesn't have a guarantee that the power produced by the engine will be high, until and unless I'll burn the fuel at right timing. So the timing part is very important. So what this, in this FI technology, what the calculations were, the first calculation was that how much amount of fuel is required. That was the major calculation. Okay. Next is at what time the fuel must be ignited. Because when I will ignite the fuel at right time, then only what will happen? The maximum charge present in the combustion chamber will burn. And when this maximum charge will burn, then only what I will get? I'll get the maximum power output from the vehicle. Okay, and if maximum of my charge is burning, then obviously it will relate in less number of pollutants coming out from the tailpipes. And typically in the petrol engines, the major polluter is your unburned hydrocarbon. Okay, so when I'm igniting the fuel at the right time, so in that case, what will happen? The less amount of unburnt hydrocarbons will come out from the tailpipe. So in this manner, what we will do is we can actually control the pollution norms also. So when this FI technology was launched, to make this calculation, as this calculation was not possible with the help of any mechanical device. Okay, so with this FI system only, we have introduced another system to this FI, that was the EMS, that is the engine management system. Now the engine management system was responsible for calculation of whole amount of fuel, at what time the fuel must be burned. Okay, this was the major system which we have used with the FI technology. Okay, and nowadays this FI technology is common in the two-wheelers also. In 2020, Government of India has launched BS6 norms, which was mandatory all over India. Okay, and in this BS norms, the two-wheelers were also covered. Two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, and the commercial vehicles. So all these vehicles were covered in BS6 norms. Okay, and if we look onto the older fashions, then in that case, we were only launching the BS norms for the updated BS norms only for the passenger car segments. So suppose the passenger car is at BS3 level. So at that time the commercial vehicle was at BS2 level. Okay, the two-wheeler was at BS2 level. Okay, it means that the pollution norms were not uniform for all the type of vehicles present in India. Okay, so from BS6 norms only, what we have done is we have made this we have made this rule that all the vehicles will be covered under this pollution norms. Okay, so when we have now launched this BS norms, so because of that also there is some problem in the in the minds of the researchers, and the problem is that now what consumer wants is consumer wants more power, and that too at less fuel consumption. And second, when I'm introducing these BS6 norms, then because of that the pollutants coming out from the vehicle has also reduced to half. And that is the major problem, that how we can control the pollutants coming out from the petrol engine. So that is why when the second phase of this BS6 norms will be launched in 2022, then another technology will be seen, though it is not common right now. In some of the vehicles it has been used. The Maruti Suzuki Brezza, which they have launched in which they have launched last year. Okay, the petrol version. Okay, then about this Skoda. So Skoda is using this technology right from 2018 onwards. So only few OEMs and in the few variants this technology is there, and the name of the technology is GDI, that is gasoline direct injection system. So in the gasoline direct injection system, what we will be doing, we'll be injecting the fuel directly into the combustion chamber. Okay, if we talk about the petrol engines, and the petrol engines, they operate slightly on the rich mixture side. Okay, we design the petrol engines to operate on the either on the stoichiometric ratio, that is the chemically correct ratio. Okay, that is 14.7 parts of air and 1 part of fuel. Okay, but in actual practice, the petrol engines, they run slightly to the richer mixture side. Because of this only, what happens, the fuel consumption of petrol engines are high, and second, the unburnt hydrocarbon emissions coming from the petrol engines are high. So now we need a technology by which we can reduce both. That is, we can reduce the fuel consumption also, and we can reduce the unburnt hydrocarbons also. That is, we have to design the petrol engine in such a manner that it should run on lean mixture zone. Okay, that is, the amount of air supplied should be more and the amount of fuel supplied should be less. Okay, and that too, it should result in good power output. So for that, the newer technology has been developed, and that is the direct injection technology. That is the GDI, gasoline direct injection. The major difference between the port fuel injection and GDI is that in the case of port fuel injection system, we are injecting the fuel behind the intake valve. Okay, and in the GDI, what we will do is we'll inject the fuel directly into the combustion chamber. And the second difference will be in the fuel pressure. The fuel pressure in the FI, that is the port fuel injection system, it is near about 5 to 10 bars. But in the case of GDI, it will be nearly about 100 to 130 bars. So that is the major challenge. And when we are going from one fuel intake side to the other fuel intake side, then in that case, the whole technology of the engine is also changed. The design parameters of engine has also changed a lot, because in the carburetor we were having the ample amount of time available. Because of that, the homogeneous charge was delivered in the combustion chamber. But when we have shifted from carburetor to FI, then in that case we are injecting the fuel just behind the intake valve. That is, in the next cycle, what will happen? The fuel and air, they will go inside the combustion chamber. So what we have to do, we have to do the certain changes, and the changes were in the piston design. So if you look onto the piston head for the FI engines, the piston head will be having the grooves, because of which the swirl movement will be created inside the combustion chamber, which will result in the proper mixing of air and fuel. When we will go in GDI, so in GDI, what we are doing, we are injecting the fuel directly into the combustion chamber. So the requirement of swirl movement and the turbulence inside the engine is very high. Because of that only, what will happen? Because of that only, this air and fuel mixture will be properly formed. Okay, but here we are here to discuss only about the EMS system. So going from from FI to GDI, in both these technology, this EMS will play the very important role. Now we come to a question that what actually is EMS? So EMS is nothing but a management system which we have installed in the vehicle. Okay, and this management system is responsible for the control of all the parameters related to the engine. Before going on to the EMS, I'll just try to explain this management function with the help of an example. So in front of you, in this slide, what I have done is I've taken the example from from a particular company. That in the companies, what we are having is we are having different departments. The department can be the production department, quality control department, production planning and control department. We are having sales and marketing department is there. Okay, the R&D department is there. So here what I have done is I have taken only one department, and that department is the sales and marketing department. This I have taken only for the example so that it can be clearly understood that how the management actually functions, for what parameters the management is responsible for. Okay, so for each department, what will be present? A senior boss will be there. So that is your central processing oblique market analysis team. Okay, which will be having a leader, a set of team will be there. Okay, and that team will be responsible for the promotion of the objects manufactured by a company. Okay, so when this when the product is being launched into the market, then certain type of promotional activities they are being done into the market. Okay, so for increasing this number of sales of a particular product, what this analysis team wants, certain inputs from the market. So suppose in this case the product has already been launched. Okay, now to boost up the sales, to take some corrective measures, this analysis team, what it wants certain feedback from the market. And this feedback can be, or this information can be in the form of activity details, the activity which has been done to promote that object. That can be that will come in the activity details, at what type of activities have been planned and how successful were those activities. The next can be the scheme performance. Suppose if a new product is launched into the market, then some schemes, lucrative schemes are being given to the consumers. It is not given only to the consumers, but it is also given to the retailers also, to the distributors also. Okay, so how those schemes are performing, that plays the very important role. Next is the competitor activity. Okay, so suppose I take the example of Bosch. So Bosch is not only the company which is manufacturing the spark plugs. There are several other companies which manufacture the spark plugs, and they are the competitors of Bosch. How the activities of competitors differ from Bosch, that also plays the important role. Okay, what type of activities they are planning to boost up the sales, that we also that can also be counted as an input. Next can be the product performance, and this is the very important parameter. This product performance is the very important parameter. Why this is the important parameter? Because the consumer will buy the product only and only when the product is reliable, product is durable. Okay, so suppose the people are choosing Bosch spark plug. The reason behind that is the Bosch spark plug is superior from all the competitors of spark plug which is present in the market. Okay, so that is the product performance. Now the feedback for this performance can be taken from the retailer, distributor, or the dealer, or it can also be taken directly from the consumer. It's also taken directly from the consumer. Sometimes consumer, by his willingness also, they give the feedback to the company at each and every packing. This feedback details are written over there. The email details are written that for any queries or for any feedback, please write an email or call this toll-free number. So the consumers also themselves, they give the input to the company. Next is the network performance, that how the network is performing. So all these, they're counting as an input, and these inputs will be given to the central processing team. What will be the role of central processing team now? The role will be to analyze all the inputs which the team has received. Okay, after the analyzing, when they will be analyzing, okay, it's not like that. Suppose the product is having any manufacturing defect, so the sales and marketing team cannot rectify this manufacturing defect. So it will also pass the information to the other departments also. That is, the manufacturing defect is related to the R&D department, it is related to the production department. So they will pass the query to both the departments. Okay, and when whole of this analysis process will be over, that is all the inputs which are required from the different departments will also come to the central team. Then what will happen? The central team will release the set of instructions, and the set of instructions can be the correction in pricing, the correction in the activities, the correction in the strategies. So this is how in a particular company any department is functioning. Okay, now we come on to the engine management system. That what is the role of engine management system? So in the case of engine management system, we need a control unit. Okay, and if we are talking for the factory side, then we are having the group of people sitting in the analysis team. But if I talk about the vehicle side, then vehicle is the mechanical component. Okay, so we cannot have the people sitting on board which will be analyzing that what all inputs are coming. So for that, what we require a control unit, and that control unit is your microprocessor. That control unit is your microprocessor. So we have fed some set of instructions into the microprocessor, based on which what the MUP will do. MUP means microprocessor. Based on that, what microprocessor will do? Microprocessor will analyze the inputs which it has received. Okay, now the question arises that if I'm using the electrical and electronic components into the vehicle, then what will be the role of mechanical engineers in the market? Okay, so let me just clear this out, that if I talk about the vehicle, okay, here only we are discussing about the engine, so I'll just take the example of engine right now. So if I'm talking only about the engine also, then an engine, the components are same, the mechanical components are same. We have not changed the mechanical component. But what we have done is we have converted that conventional mechanical component into electromechanical component. So what is the requirement now? That the engineer who is having the job in that particular company which is manufacturing the component, he or she must have the basic knowledge of the engine, of the vehicle electrical and electronics also. Okay, so that is the primary requirement. So the requirements have changed, but the components which we have used, the components are exactly same. Okay, so if I talk about the engine components in brief, so what we are having the valves. So the valves were used way back in 1901 also, when Carl Benz has developed the first vehicle, first four-wheeler was developed. Okay, at that time also the valves were present. At that time also the pistons were there, the camshaft was there, the crankshaft was there. Okay, this whole piston assembly was there. And in today's generation of time also, the engine is having all these components, though the design of the components have changed a lot. So that change in the design has been observed, but the basic components are same, and the components are performing the same function as they were doing in 1901 when the first vehicle was launched. Okay, now what we want is, now what the consumer actually wants from the vehicle is, consumer wants more power coming from the vehicle. Okay, if you look onto the older generation of vehicles, and the engine cabinet was very big. The baby elephant can sit inside the engine compartment. That was the size of the engine compartment. The size of the engine was very big at that time. So now what we have done, we have made the engine size compact, and making the engine size compact, obviously what can happen, the power output can reduce. But now because of this engine management system, from that compact engine also, we are getting the adequate amount of power, and that too at low fuel cost. So if we talk about the older generation of vehicles which were delivering only 4 kilometers per liter of mileage, nowadays that vehicle having the 1200 1500 cc engine or 2000 cc engine is delivering near about 15 to 16 kilometers per liter of mileage. Okay, the small 1200 cc engine can deliver 20 kilometer per liter mileage. I'm talking about the petrol engines. If I go on to the diesel engine side, then this mileage will be it will be a little bit high. It will be near about 23-24 kilometers per liter. So we have made the size of the engine compact, and how this good fuel economy has been achieved. It is only achieved because of the engine management system. Now this engine management system, that is the engine control unit, or the engine control module, which we call it as. This engine control module for better power, for delivering better power output from the vehicle, it requires a certain input. And from where these inputs will come? These inputs will come from the different mechanical components which we have installed on the vehicle. Okay, so if I talk about the engine, the major engine component is the crankshaft. And the role of crankshaft is to convert the reciprocatory motion of piston into rotary motion, so that the flywheel can get the drive, and from the flywheel, the vehicle can get the drive. Okay. But apart from this function, the crankshaft is also responsible for giving the information to the ECM that when the fuel injection has to happen. Okay, see what we have to do. We have to inject the fuel at right time. We have to meter the quantity of fuel, and then we have to ignite that fuel also at the right time. Then only the power output will be optimized. Okay, so for this, the first input will come from CKP, that is crankshaft positioning sensor. Okay, so what we are having in the engine management system is that at the input side, we will be installing certain sensors on the mechanical components, which make that mechanical component to electromechanical component. These sensors, they will be giving signals to the engine management system. The engine management system will analyze those signals and will receive and will, it will give the output as the voltage signals to the different actuators. See, this sensor technology is exactly same we have in the human body also. In human body, we have got 5 sensing organs. Okay, so in those 5 sensing organs, the one organ is our skin. Okay, so if I touch the hot object, then the skin immediately gives this reading or this input to the brain. What brain will do? Brain then at the next moment release the output signal to the actuator. Actuator in this case will be your hand. So hand acts like an actuator, and what the signal is that just remove the hand from that hot utensil. It can injure you. Okay, so this idea of engine management system is taken from the human brain. That is why we call this engine management system the brain of the vehicle. Okay, so the inputs which we want is that first input we want from crankshaft, So for that, what we have done is we have installed the crankshaft positioning sensor on the crankshaft, which gives the information to the ECM that right now what is the degree of rotation for the crankshaft. Next comes CMP. CMP stands for camshaft positioning sensor. Now camshaft also plays the very important role. First of all, the camshaft, it gets the drive from crankshaft only. Okay, when the crankshaft will rotate at n rpm, so camshaft will rotate at n by 2 rpm. So camshaft, it is getting drive from the crankshaft itself. Now camshaft in the vehicle is responsible for 2 things. That it is responsible for opening and closing of the intake and exhaust valves. That is, it acts like the timing mechanism so that the valves can operate. And second, because of this camshaft only, the fuel ignition is timed. Okay, because of this camshaft only, the fuel ignition is timed. So now what we have done is keeping that same camshaft we were using before. Okay, what we have done is on that camshaft, we have mounted a sensor which will be monitoring the degree of rotation for the camshaft so that the fuel ignition can be timed up. Next comes the TPS. So TPS stands for throttle positioning sensor. Now this throttle positioning sensor means that by what amount the driver has opened the throttle valve. Okay, and the opening of throttle valve depends on that how hard the driver has put his foot onto the throttle pedal. So when the driver will press the throttle pedal more, than throttle valve actually will open in more quantity. So when the driver is putting the pressure onto the throttle valve, okay, when he is wide opening the throttle valve, that means that more amount of fuel is required. In the earlier generation of vehicles, this was not monitored. Okay, so even the throttle valve was wide open, then also the fuel quantity can vary. So because of that problem, there was the less power output coming from the vehicle. So for that, what we have done, we have installed the TPS, that is a throttle positioning sensor. So this throttle positioning sensor is installed on the throttle valve itself. Okay, so by what amount the throttle valve is opened, the sensor will sense that and will give the information to the ECM so that it can take necessary action regarding the fuel requirements. Next is the MAP. So MAP stands for manifold absolute pressure sensor. That in this particular cycle, what is the absolute pressure in the intake manifold? This will tell the ECM that how much load is there onto the vehicle. Okay, because more load will require more fuel. Okay, and how we give the load onto the vehicle? By pressing the throttle pedal. Okay, so by TP sensor, what we have done is we have find out that yes, by this much amount the throttle valve is open. By the help of map sensor, what we have done is we have find out that because of that opening, how much load has come onto the engine and what should be the fuel requirement. It will be calculated by the engine control module. Next is the IAT. IAT stands for intake air temperature sensor. So this temperature sensor, what it will do, it will sense that at what temperature the incoming air is entering into the intake manifold. Next is the ECT. ECT stands for engine coolant temperature sensor. Okay, and this sensor, it is responsible for measuring the engine coolant temperature, because nowadays in the vehicles, this the radiator blower, it is operated only when the temperature of the coolant rises above 97 degrees centigrade. So ECM wants to know that right now what is the engine coolant temperature, so that it can adjust or it can operate the radiator blower so that the coolant can cool down. Next is the NOx sensor. So this is the newest sensor which we have added in the vehicles. Okay, right now also it is not common in all the vehicles. So I always divide the vehicles in three ranges. That is the low price range vehicles, the medium price range vehicles, and the high price range vehicles. So right now the NOx sensor, it finds its application only in the medium range vehicles and in the high range vehicles. Because of the cost constraints, it is not used in the low range vehicles. Okay, so this NOx sensor is sensing the abnormal vibrations which are coming during the combustion process. Okay, see, when the combustion will happen, then the vibrations will occur. But if those vibrations are very high, then it can cause severe threat to the engine components. So to protect that, what we are using the NOx sensor. Okay, next is the VSS. So VSS, it stands for vehicle speed sensor. That right now, what is the vehicle speed? Okay, if you have seen the odometer of the vehicle, if you see the odometer, if you see the speedometer, if you see the instrument cluster of the vehicle, then where this speed range is there, then in that case, from the speed 0 to 20, this red mark is shown. This is especially in the motorcycles. Okay, in the two-wheelers it is present, which is having the analog meters. So speed range 0 to 20 will give you red mark. Okay, then from 0 to 40, sorry. So from 40 to 80, it will give green mark, and 80 above, it will give red mark. Why it is giving so? Because when we are driving the vehicle at lower speeds, at that time more amount of fuel is delivered. When I'm driving the vehicle at higher speeds, then more amount of fuel is delivered. So that is the prime requirement of the vehicle when I'm driving the vehicle at higher speeds. So ECM wants to know that right now what is the vehicle speed, so that it can adjust the quantity of fuel. Next is the MAF. MAF stands for mass airflow sensor. So what this sensor will be doing, this sensor will be actually giving the information that in a particular cycle, how much grams of air has entered into the intake manifold. This will be the work of MAF, that is the mass airflow sensor. Now, if I talk about these sensors except O2, I have skipped O2. Okay. Except O2 sensor, all these sensors which I have mentioned right now, these sensors are placed at the intake side. These sensors are placed at the intake side. Because of these sensors, the amount of fuel delivery, the fuel ignition timing is being calculated. The fuel injection timing has been calculated. But this sensor technology which we are using in the vehicles, this is the closed loop system. So when we always talk about the closed loop system, I don't know that you have studied about the systems. We are having two systems. If you are from electrical or electronics field, then I really hope that you have studied the subject, that is the control system. So when we study about in the control system, the first topic is the open system and the closed system. So when I talk about the open system, in the open system, what actually is happening? You quote the example for the electric iron regarding the open system and the closed system. So if I'm having the open system, okay, the open system can be related to the old electric irons which were present. So in those old electric irons, what was there? We were having the iron frame, and between that iron frame, the filament was fitted. And the filament, when we pass the current, that filament will heat up and iron will heat up. And because of that, we can iron our clothes. Okay, that is, we were not having any control on the temperature of this of this electric iron. So that was the open system in which no feedback system was present. But nowadays the modifications have done in the electric irons also. The electric irons are now made as the closed system. That is, we have fitted a sensor into it which is measuring the temperature. I hope you have seen the no, new electric irons. In that, what is present? The different boards are present regarding the fabric which we have to iron. So for cotton, the different temperature has to be there. For linen, the different temperature has to be there. For woolen clothes, different temperature has to be there. And when we are supplying the current, suppose I've set the knob to cotton. Okay, and for ironing cotton, suppose 50 degree centigrade temperature is required. So the current will go into the filament till the time that 50 degree centigrade temperature is achieved. Once that 50 degree centigrade is achieved, then in that case, that feedback system, what it will give the information to the control module that temperature has been achieved and you have to stop the current supply into the filament. Okay, so this is the type of closed system. Same we use in the engine management system also. So if I'm talking about the engine management system, the engine management system is also the closed loop system. How we have made it closed? By placing the oxygen sensor in the exhaust manifold. So what we have done at the intake side, okay, because of that, what will happen? The combustion will happen. And when the combustion gases will come out, so what this O2 sensor will do? This O2 sensor will sense that how much oxygen is coming out with these exhaust gases. Okay, and accordingly the feedback will be generated and which will be given to the ECM so that ECM can take the necessary action in the next cycle. Okay, so all these sensors which we have discussed right now, these sensors are giving the inputs, and these inputs are in the form of voltage signals. Okay, and for the automotive applications, this voltage ranges between 0 volts to 5 volts. Minimum it can be 0 and maximum it can be 5 volts. So this voltage signals will be generated and these voltage signals will be given to the ECM, that is your engine control module, in which what is present? A microprocessor is present. That microprocessor is in continuous touch with these sensors and the different actuators. Okay, so once this ECM receives the receives the signal, it starts to analyze those signals. How it will analyze? It will compare these signals received with the program which we have stored in the microprocessor. Okay, that is, before installing the microprocessor onto the vehicle, we have to tame that microprocessor also. Taming means we have to feed certain programs also, and that programs are fed into the memory, and that is known as map memory of microprocessor. So these signals, they will be compared with the program stored in the map memory, and then the comparison will happen, and accordingly what the ECM will do? ECM will release the voltage signals that will be your output signals, and those voltage signals will be given to the actuators. The actuators which we are using in the case of petrol engines, they are first of all they are the fuel injectors. So the fuel injectors, they are nothing, they are the electromechanical device in which the needle valve for injecting the fuel will be lifted because of the solenoid. So when the ECM will pass the current into the solenoid will get energized, it will lift, the fuel delivery will take place. Next is the ignition system. So the ignition system which we were using in the old generation of vehicles, that was having the distributor. So distributor was responsible for timing the ignition in those vehicles, and it was responsible for timing. It was responsible for actually set the time that when the ignition process must occur in the respective cylinder, but that was the mechanical device. So now what we have done is we have made the ignition system the electronic ignition system. Okay, in this the power transistors will be used. Those power transistors, they will be passing the current into the spark plug so that the ignition process can occur. Okay, and the signals to the power transistors, it will come again from the ECM. Next is the idle speed actuator. So this actuator, it helps the engine to run even when the driver has left off his foot from the throttle pedal. So it helps in the idling of the engine. Next is the purge control solenoid valve. So this valve we have used for controlling the evaporative emissions. So this is how the engine management system is functioning. It is receiving the signals from the mechanical components with the help of sensors in the form of voltage signals. The voltage signals can be analog also, it can be digital also. Nowadays, we prefer to have the digital signal based sensors. That the signals will be processed in the ECM. that is in the microprocessor of the ECM, then that ECM will release the output signals again in terms of voltage, and it will pass that signal to the different actuators so that the necessary actions can be taken. Okay, and what will be the necessary actions? First of all, the timing of injection. The second action is the metering of fuel. The third is that at what time the ignition must occur. So this will be the corrective measures which will be taken by the ECM. Okay, so this is how the engine management system is functioning. Okay, this slide we have discussed that from which generation of fuel intake system this need has come for the engine management system. So it has started from port fuel injection system. So when you shifted from carburetor to FI, so there comes the need of a microprocessor, and that was your EMS itself, that is your engine management system itself. When we'll go from FI to GDI, then in that case the EMS will remain the same. The basic architecture of the EMS will remain the same. The basic sensors will be those only which we have discussed right now. Only some sensors will increase. Okay, that will increase because the fuel delivery technology is now changed. Okay, so this is the abbreviation of the sensor. CKP stands for crankshaft positioning sensor. As I have told you, CMP stands for camshaft positioning sensor. TPS stands for throttle positioning sensor. MAP stands for manifold absolute pressure sensor. IAT, it stands for intake air temperature sensor. ECT, it stands for engine coolant temperature sensor. Now, apart from engine coolant temperature sensor, we can also have oil temperature sensor, because in some of the vehicles, the oil cooling system is used. So if I'm using oil cooling system, then in that case, the oil temperature has to be measured. Okay, in some of the high range vehicles, the temperature of the fuel is also measured. So for that, what we use the fuel temperature sensor. Okay, next is the NOC. So NOC stands for NOC sensor. Next is the VSS, that is the vehicle speed sensor. This sensor is very important. Why this sensor is important? Because it is not only delivering the information to the ECM, it is also delivering the information to the other control units present. It is also delivering the information to the other control units present. That is, in the case of today's generation of vehicles, we are having the ABS also. We are having airbags installed also. So they also require the information that currently what is the speed of the vehicle. Okay, so for that, what we require the vehicle speed sensor. Next is the O2 sensor, which is acting like the feedback sensor. It is also known as lambda sensor. Next is the MAF. MAF stands for mass airflow sensor. The another name for it is the air mass meter, which actually gives the information that in a particular cycle, how much amount of air has entered into the intake manifold. Okay, so this is the basic location of the sensors. So first of all, if I start with the temperature sensor, I'm starting from below. So if I start from temperature sensor, so temperature sensor, I'm measuring the temperature of coolant over here. So this is the engine coolant temperature sensor, and I know that where the coolant will be present. Coolant will be there where the cylinders will be there, where the water jackets will be there. So the water jackets in the engine is present in the cylinder block. Okay, so the sensor will be placed in the cylinder block only. If I talk about the NOx sensor, NOx sensor is sensing the abnormal vibrations because of some fault in the combustion process. So combustion, it happens in the cylinder part itself. So this sensor is also bolted in the cylinder block itself. Next, if I talk about the crankshaft speed sensor, that is your CKP sensor. Now, as the name suggests, crankshaft. So crankshaft, it will always be present in the bottommost side of the engine. Okay, because crankshaft lies in the crankcase. Okay, so the crankshaft sensor will be placed over onto the crankshaft itself. It can be present at the flywheel side or it can be present at the pulley side. Next is the hot film air mass sensor. So this is your MAF, that is your mass airflow sensor. So what this actually sensor is sensing? The sensor is sensing that how much amount of air is entered. So for this, we have to place the sensor at the starting point itself, that is just after the air filter. Next is the high pressure sensor. So in some of the vehicles, this high pressure sensor is present, which actually senses the pressure of the fuel in the rail. Because in the FI systems, we are having the rail, and that the fuel is stored, and from that rail only, the fuel is delivered into the combustion chamber. So in some of the vehicles, the ECM needs to know that what is the rail pressure, because the rail pressure can vary from 5 bars to 10 bars. Next is the low pressure sensor. So the sensor is used for controlling the evaporative emissions. So it is mounted in the cylinder head. Next is the camshaft speed sensor. So camshaft speed sensor will be placed where the camshaft is present. So camshaft is present in the cylinder head, because the technology which we are using right now for for the timing system, that can either be SOHC or it can be DOHC. SOHC stands for single overhead cam, and DOHC it stands for double overhead cam. Okay, so here the term is coming overhead cam. So it means that the cam will be present in the cylinder head itself. So that is why this camshaft speed sensor will be placed in the cylinder head itself. Okay, so this is the system layout which we have designed for Tata Nano. That is the in which the complete Bosch system has been used. Okay, so that is known as Valve Motronic system. Okay, see what we have done is I've only named the technology MPFI. I have only named a technology MPFI, that is multi-point fuel injection system. Okay, but this multi-point fuel injection system, if I talk about in the Bosch perspective, suppose you need to know one thing, that if I'm talking about the FI technology, so Bosch was the first company who has invented this FI system way back in 1967. Okay, so in 1967 only this FI technology was in place. Okay, and this at that time this FI technology was known as monojetronic. That is, it was SPFI technology. Okay, in 3 years span of time, that is in 1969. We have developed the another technology that was MPFI. That is your Motronic system. We call it as Motronic. Okay, in terms of Bosch, MPFI is known as Motronic system. Okay, and this Motronic system was sent into the production in 1975, and from 1979 onwards it was started coming in the vehicles, but not in India, because India was lagging 15 to 20 years behind in the technology at that time. Okay, so that is why in India this FI technology was not common at that time. So the MPFI is also known as Motronic system. So from 1979 to 2004, the major changes in the in this Motronic system has been done. Okay, then in 2004, Bosch has come with another technology, and that was Motronic with Valvetronic control, which we are using till now also. Okay, not only in India but in the overseas also we are using that. So that system is MPFI with VVT. I hope if you have seen the Maruti Suzuki Swift, then on the side fender of the petrol engine it is written VVT. So VVT stands for variable valve time. Okay, so the technology which we are using in all the generation of petrol engines right now is MPFI with VVT. That is MPFI, that is multi-point fuel injection system with variable valve timing system. Okay, and in the case of diesel engines, right now we are using CRDI system. Okay, in BS3 also it was CRDI, BS4 also was CRDI, and BS6 is also CRDI. Okay, CRDI stands for Common Rail Direct Injection System. Okay, but the difference was in the pressure, in the rail pressure. At the time of CRDI in BS3, the rail pressure was near about 1200 bar, which was raised to 2500 bar to 3000 to 2500 bar to 3000 bar in BS4. Okay, then in BS6, what we have done is we have raised this pressure a very little bit to up to 3500 bar. Okay, and in the second phase of BS6 norms, what we will be doing, we will be further increasing this pressure to 4500 bar. Okay, so when I'm increasing the pressure, in that case, what I'm actually doing, I'm improving the atomization and the vaporization of the fuel. Okay, and if the atomization and the vaporization will be proper, then ultimately because of that, the first of all the air and fuel mixture will be proper, and because of that actually what will happen, the combustion will be more efficient. So this is what we have we have done right now. Okay, so this is all what I have to cover in this short span of time. I know that I was only able to give you the overview that how actually the engine management system is functioning. Okay, but it takes near about 3 to 4 days to complete this whole session, in which we actually discuss that how these sensors are made, what is the internal material for the sensors, how the sensors are constructed, okay, how these sensors are functioning, where these sensors are located, okay, and how we can check these sensors. This we all discussed in 4 days. Okay, so that is why as the time provided was very short, that is only for the 1 hour, so I can only give you the overview. Okay, now I'm opening this meeting for the for the question and answer session. So these people from Skyradars, they can they can overtake me. I hope someone is there from the Skyriders.
Hello, Ankur sir, is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, any problem?
No, I have completed my session. Okay, now it's open for question and answers, so I can take some questions now.
Yeah, so you can take up the questions. So anyone who is having any doubts, you can directly come up and ask.
Sir, in which place low pressure sensor will use?
Low pressure sensor is used to control the evaporative emissions actually. Okay, see what happens that when the vehicle is running, so there is some purge being developed inside the cylinder head also. Some purge is coming from the fuel tank also. So to control the evaporative emissions, we have introduced a new this low pressure sensor that is used to sense the pressure at that side, so that the purge control valve can open up, so that the fuel vapors they can they can directly take participation into the fuel combustion process.
Hello. Sir, I'm having a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sir,
Yes,
if
please,
our
please
main
carry.
is to increase, sir, if our main aim is to increase the efficiency of the engines, then why don't we increase the pressure beforehand? Like it's not important for the government to impose Bharat stage norms, right?
See,
If you have the
okay, okay. So I'm just answering this. See, if I want to increase the pressure, I am saying that I've increased the pressure from 20 kilopascals to 5 bars in FI system. Okay, but this statement seems to be very easy. Okay, that it will be very easy to it will be very easy to to increase the pressure. But when I'm increasing the pressure, then certain parameters have to be changed. The entire geometry of the engine has to be changed. Okay, and then the major change will be in the materials used for manufacturing the engine components. Okay, so if I want to change this, so for that I require the technology also. Okay, and that is not available. That was not available at that time. Okay, and secondly, if I will do these changes in a particular moment also, then it will increase the cost of the vehicle, minimum up to 5 to 6 times, and that will not be purchased by any consumer. Okay, so when it comes to the changes are always done in the phased manner. Okay, see, in case of your student life also, you face exam while you are studying. There's no the output will come from your exams only. Okay, let me say that this year no exams will occur and you will be promoted. Okay, then what will happen? You'll come into the relaxed mode. Okay, that yes, I am promoted right now. I don't have to study now. Okay, so same as with the automotive companies also. So the government is imposing certain norms. So these imposing of these norms are also important. Plus the technology available at that time to produce that FI technology. It should also be present at that time, and that was not present in India at that time. as I've told you that India was lacking 15 to 20 years behind the European system. Okay, with this BS6 norms in place, this gap is it has been reduced to 3 to 4 years actually. Okay, so it's not easy to when I'm actually saying that I only need to change the fuel delivery method. So it's not like that. It will be easy to construct the engine. Several other parameters will be affected when I will be changing the fuel delivery technology. So that is not important. That is not very easy at that time.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Abhishek. Yep. Please ask your queries one by one.
Sir, can you please elaborate what is MTFI and give a overview of that? How it
MPFI,
works?
okay.
Yes, sir.
MPFI, it stands for multi-point fuel injection system. Okay, multi-point means that I am injecting the fuel at multiple points. Okay, multiple points. How the multiple points can we have in the engine? So suppose the engine is 4-cylinder engine. So if I am injecting the fuel at 4 sides, then it will be known as MPFI system. That is, in the MPFI systems, what we have done is we have placed the fuel injector, and the number of fuel injectors used will be equal to that of the cylinders we are having in that engine. Okay, so that is the MPFI system. Okay, so in the MPFI system, what will happen? The fuel will be sucked from the fuel tank by the low pressure pump that will generate the pressure of 5 to 10 bar, and then this fuel will come into the fuel rail, and from that fuel rail, the fuel will be supplied to the respective cylinders at certain injection pressure. Okay, and when the injector will open, when the ECM will give this signal to the injector, then only the injector will open. Okay, so this is the
Okay,
very
sir.
brief about the MPFI system.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir, one question. Hello.
Sir, if the fuel injector is directly placed in the combustion chamber, there will be increase in the volumetric efficiency, sir.
If please ask the question slowly.
Sir, if the fuel injector is directly placed in the combustion chamber, there will be any change in the volumetric efficiency?
See, if I place the injector directly into the fuel injector. Okay, see, first of all, let us talk about the volumetric efficiency. What is volumetric efficiency? Volumetric efficiency is the breathing capacity of the engine. Okay, that is known as the volumetric efficiency. Okay, if I talk about the fuel delivery system, so the entire fuel delivery calculation, it is done by the ECM with respect to the inputs given by the different sensors. So volumetric efficiency doesn't have a role to play in it. But if I am placing the injector or the opening of injectors directly into the combustion chamber, then what will happen? The entire engine geometry has to be changed. Why? Because now in the cylinder itself, the air and fuel mixture will it will be prepared in the cylinder itself. So we have to make the engine in such a manner that the turbulence rate, squish movement, and the swirl movement of the air must be very high, so that the air and fuel can be properly mixed up with each other, so that so that the combustion can be efficient. Okay, so if I'm placing the injector directly into the combustion chamber, there will be less effect onto the volumetric efficiency, but in that case, the entire geometry of the engine has to be changed.
हेलो
Yes.
सर, जैसा आपने बोला कि जो MPFI में होता है कि इंजेक्टर्स हैव डिफरेंट इंजेक्टर, देयर आर पर्टिकुलर इंजेक्टर्स फॉर डिफरेंट सिलेंडर. So how is pressure maintained?
Pressure is maintained in the common rail. That is the rail which we are having.
So sir, it is a CR. So what's the difference between MPFI and CRDI?
The difference is entirely for the pressure ranges. In this MPFI system, the pressure range is from 5 to 10 bars itself. But in the case of CRDI system, the rail contains the pressure of near about 3000 bars. So that is the first difference. And second is, in case of petrol engines, only one pump is used which can produce 5 to 10 bar pressures. But in the case of diesel engines, we are having two pumps. One is the feed pump, and second one will be the high pressure pump. Okay.
Low pump.
Second. Okay. So next difference will be in the opening of the injector nozzles. Okay, in the case of diesel engines, the nozzle opens up up at the injection pressure of 200 220 bars. In the case of diesel engines, the fuel injector nozzle it opens up at at near about the pressure of 150 160 bars. So that is the difference between the MPFI system and the CRDI system. Okay, but the main composition is same. The rail will be present in both the engines.
Okay. Well, mainly there is pressure difference only.
Yeah, there is the pressure difference.
Okay, sir. One thing also, sir, engine management system is common for gasoline, petrol, and diesel.
See, gasoline and petrol is one thing itself. First of all, if I talk about the engine management system, so it is same for both the vehicles. It is same for petrol engine also. It is same for diesel engine also. But in the case of in both the cases, what can happen? The type of sensors can change. The location of the sensors can change. That will be the basic difference. In the case of petrol engines, this EMS system will be used to control the fuel delivery. Okay, while in the case of diesel engines, this EMS system, it controls the air input to the combustion chamber. So we have got the control of air into the diesel engine management system, and in the case of petrol, they are actually controlling the amount of fuel delivered to the system, to the engine for the combustion process.
Okay. Sir, one thing also, what's the difference between sensor and actuator?
The difference is, see, the sensor, what it will do, it will release it will sense a particular thing, okay, and it will generate the voltage signal regarding that. And what will be the actuator? Actuator will be the one which has to receive the signal from the microprocessor, and then it will function. See, if I talk about the injector, fuel injector is the actuator. So in this fuel injector, what is present? This solenoid is present. Okay, so when the ECM will give the current to the solenoid will energize. And when it will energize, it will lift the needle valve so that fuel can enter, and fuel can now enter into the combustion chamber. So this will be the work of actuator. A CKP sensor has told that at this moment the fuel injection should begin. But fuel injector, what it will do, it will actually inject the fuel into the combustion chamber. So it is performing the work for the engine.
Means in simple language, sensor means it only signalize, and actuator signal also and work also.
No, actuator doesn't signals. Actuator receives the signal.
Okay, receive the signal and work.
Sensor produces the signal, and actuator actually receives the signal, so that it can.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Raja Mohan, please mute yourself.
I hope your doubt is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
In case of battery will be damaged, the sensor will be also stopped there.
In case of battery failure, see, two types of battery failures are there. Okay, the one failure is there's no potential left into the battery. It means the battery is completely dead. Okay, and second condition is the flat battery. So if the battery will be completely dead, that is, it is not having any EMF stored into it, so it cannot power the ECM. So when ECM will not be powered, then obviously the sensors will not get the power. So this is the one type. Second, I know that you are talking about the flat battery. That is, I've parked my car and accidentally I have switched on the headlamp. My battery has discharged. Okay, I hope you're talking about this condition. Now in this condition also, if I talk about the automotive batteries, and then in the automotive batteries, we have got the reserve capacity available. Okay, so we've got the reserve capacity. So if battery is drained also, then in that case also, from the reserve capacity of the battery, what will happen? The current can go into the ECM, because ECM only requires 5-volt supply. So if battery will be completely drained, then it will be at the reserve capacity. There's very much disturbance right now. Rushidev. Okay, so at that time also what will happen? The battery will be having some potential stored into it, which will not be less than 5 volts. It will be able to supply the current to this ECM. Then ECM can give the current to the sensors at that moment. Okay, but the vehicle will not start. Why the vehicle will not start? Because starter motor will not function in that case. So you have to pull. What you have to do is you have to push the vehicle in that case to start, to force start the vehicle, or you have to jump start the vehicle.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
Is the ECU and ECM the same?
ECU and ECM, they both are same.
Okay, sir.
ECU
Hello.
can be, in some cases, we call ECU as engine control unit. In some cases, we call ECU as electronic control unit. So when I'm talking about the electronic control units, so there are several electronic control units installed on the vehicle. Okay, but if I'm giving it the name engine control unit, then the engine control unit and the engine control module, they both are same. Even this engine control module has got another name that is known as PCM, that is programmable control module.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sir, EMS and ECU have difference.
EMS stands for engine management system. Okay, so in the name of engine management system, what we are having a microprocessor that is known as ECM, that is engine control module. Next, we are having the sensors to give the inputs, and next we are having the actuators to perform the required amount of work. So this whole architecture, it comes under EMS, that is engine management system.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, when we use LPG or CNG as a fuel, what
please
are the
ask the
changes
question. Please ask the question one by one. I'll not be able to answer in this fashion. Okay. Just a second. Okay, so someone was asking regarding the LPG, CNG. Can you please complete your question?
Yes. Sir, when we use fuel LPG or CNG, what are the difference is in any engine?
No. If I talk
any
about
customization are required in engine, or they are same?
Engines are same for both for both petrol engines and the CNG based engines or the LPG based engines. Only some different components have been added up, which will be responsible for delivering the metered quantity of gas into the combustion chamber, so that the combustion process can happen. Okay, if I talk about the engine side, no components will change. Okay, if I talk about the vehicle side, then the suspension system, rear suspension system of the vehicle will change, because the cylinder weight for CNG, it's near about 70 kgs. Okay, so in that case, we need to redesign the suspension system. Okay, so that can be a major change. But in the case of engines, no certain changes are required.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, can you send me the soft copies?
Your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking. Can you please type your question in the chat box? I'll answer from there.
Sir, send me the soft copies to the WhatsApp, sir. About this topic.
See, for that you have to talk to the organizers. I'm not the organizer. I'm just the trainer right now.
Okay, sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, please ask your question.
Sir, you talked about the battery. So can you just elaborate something about the alternator, only if it's relevant?
See, it's not relevant to the topic right now. We are here to discuss the engine management system. Okay, so for that, some other webinar can be arranged regarding this alternator. Then I'll be able to answer that.
Okay, sir, no problem. Thank you.
Sir, can you explain the scavenging process?
Scavenging process is that how we are forcing the exhaust gases out from the combustion chamber. Okay, see, what happens is that in the case of 4-stroke engines, what we are having is 4 different strokes. That is, first one is the intake stroke. If I talk about the petrol engine, then in the case of intake stroke, the fresh charge is entering inside. Okay, the second one is the compression stroke, in which we compress the charge up to a certain compression pressure. Third one is the power stroke, in which the power is being produced. Now, when the power is produced, then as a result of the combustion, what actually happens? That certain gases are produced. Those gases are toxic in nature, first of all. And if those gases will be present in the combustion chamber, then no new charge can enter. Okay, so for that, what we have to do is we have to force these gases out from the combustion chamber. So in the case of 2-stroke engines, basically what we have done is, in the case of 2-stroke engines, we have made the dome onto the piston head, and because of that dome only, the scavenging process was occurring. Okay, but now what we have done is we have done the changes in the valve timing. Now, when the fresh charge is entering inside the combustion chamber, the fresh charge is only helping us to remove the exhaust gases out from the combustion chamber. So, in short, the scavenging process is the removal of exhaust gases out from the combustion chamber. Okay, in two-stroke engines, that was the very typical task. So, for that, the dome has to be installed onto the piston head. Because of that, the scavenging process actually occurs. In the case of four-stroke engines, this scavenging is not the tedious task. So when the fresh charge is entering inside, it is also only helping the residue gases to force out of the combustion chamber.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, do we use fuel injector in a scooty or bike? Especially BS4 like Activa 4G, Activa 5G.
One by one. Who's asking? Srangesh Gupta is asking the question right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, do we use fuel injector in a scooty or bike? And
Okay.
especially in BS4 and BS6 bike.
Okay. See, if I talk about I hope my voice is audible. If I talk about the BS4 generations, then in the case of two-wheelers, if I'm talking about the BS4 generations, the BS4 was having the carburetor only, and the carburetor was responsible for delivering the air and fuel mixture inside the combustion chamber. Okay, so there was no requirement of fuel injector because the vehicle at that time was complying the pollution norms. Okay, but in the case of four-wheelers, when we have in the case of BS6 range, there is the requirement of fuel injectors. So in all the vehicles which are complied to BS6, they are having the fuel injectors in place, and with fuel injectors, they have got entire engine management system present. Okay, only the number of sensors will be limited.
Yes, sir.
So, can you know?
Yes.
Sir, I have a question that the Bajaj company is not implying the FI, and he is using electronic carburetor. So, can you please give me an overview of electronic carburetor?
Okay, see,
how it is work.
Right now, I'm not having any material regarding that, the electronic carburetor. Okay, but as this, if I'm talking about the electronic carburetor, this electronic carburetor is the bit old thing. Okay, I don't know that from where you have got the information that Bajaj is not using FI. Bajaj was the first company which has launched the FI. After the first one was TVS. Then after that, Bajaj has launched this Pulsar 220 that was based on fuel injection technology. So they were the first company which has launched the 220cc bike and which was having the FI system. If I talk about the electronic carburetor, then in the electronic carburetors, for metering the quantity of fuel, some certain electronic components are being used. Okay, that is only the main difference between the normal carburetor and the electronic carburetor. So right now I'm not having any material regarding that, but I will surely post the material to the organizers. They will share it with you.
Hello. So during scavenging, will there be loss of fresh air fuel mixture?
Yes, sometimes it can be. Okay.
Will that lower the efficiency?
It can lower down the fuel efficiency. Just if this fresh charges going into with the exhaust gases, then obviously the fuel efficiency will be it will be lowered down. But that is in the very minute quantity, and because of this EMS system also, because of this variable valve timing also, what we have done is we have we've got we've got a good control onto this, that no fresh charge will be wasted with the exhaust gases. So we have designed this exhaust valves in such a manner that whole of the exhaust gases without this fresh charge will automatically escape the combustion chamber.
Hello. Sir, could you please send me the slide from first onwards?
For that, you have to contact these organizers. They can forward it to you. I'm not having any right to forward it to anyone.
Sir, please slide the PPT.
I'm talking about the PPTs only, and I hope the recording will be shared, but I cannot share my these PPTs as it is confidential, so I cannot share it with you people.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.